Alright, so we are looking at a blank standards-based grading Excel document. There's nothing in the student section yet, and we're setting it up as if you're about to input scores from a new test that you've taken. So all these zeros right here are the number of points that students got for each question. The first thing I do when I'm setting up my document is I go all the way over to the questions AM and AN, and I input the correct scores. So I would look at either my answer key or a test that I had hand graded and I knew was correct, and if the answer is actually C, I have in AR a section of just like all the answer choices, so you can copy paste and change one so that the correct answer is reflected there as C, and you go through and change all of them. The only ones that you can't input right away are for some reason I haven't figured out how to code the plus and then a number, because you can't even type plus A in here because Excel thinks that you're adding cell values. So copy paste is really the only way I've found so far that works out. So if you have a griddable, I wait until I have input student scores, and then I go find one that's correct and I copy paste it into the griddable question to code that. So once you've coded your correct answers in AN, you're going to go over to all of these zeros through Q through AD. I generally color code because that's a little easier for me. I go through and I say, okay, if blue is going to be my standard 1, question 1, which you can see up here, is standard 1, question 2 is not, question 4 is also standard 1, so I color code just to make it easier for myself to see. And then how you actually code it is you go to your standard 1 where it says raw, and if you click on that first zero, you can see up here that there's this whole equation. Standard 1 equals Q2, which is this box right here, plus T2, which is this box right here. And if you actually start editing them, like if you type in, you can see that they all highlight. You just want to go change your questions so that they match up. So let me give you an example. If you said that this one is actually not standard 1 and you wanted to change a few of them, let's say that what's left is now my standard 1 for my new test. I would go in and start editing. Oh, I see that W2 is no longer a part of standard 1, so I can go in and delete that, and you'll see that box goes away. Z2 is no longer a part of standard 1, delete that. AC is no longer a part of standard 1, and let's say that I, at the last minute, realize, oh wait, but V2 is actually standard 1. So I would go in and I would say plus V2. And then once you're done, you have to hit enter. And it still calculates to 0 because right now there's no data in the student section. But the important thing is that you have just coded AE2 and nothing else. So when you highlight that, you see that it gets this green box with this little square in the bottom. If you hover over the square, your cursor changes from a big white plus sign to a thinner black plus sign. You want that thin black plus sign, and then you want to double click on it, and you see that it just carried, and you can see it's highlighted, it carried the coding all the way down to the end of my sheet. So now every single column, if I have 57 students, then A2, A3, A4, all the way, or AE, all the way up to 58, because this first row is taken up with something else, would have that correct coding. So you just did that for the first standard, then you want to go over and double check that your second standard is accurate. Now you can see that there's some other ones I need to add in, so I would say plus W2, plus Z2, plus AC2, and if you can't tell, I'm getting these numbers, or these letters, from the column names, and then the 2 is coming from the fact that I'm talking right now about the second row. And once I hit enter and I copy my coding all the way down, if you click on something else, you would see that now it's talking about 18 because now we're in the 18th row. So I have coded for my standard 1 and standard 2. This is for 7th grade that uses hand grading as well, so if you put in your hand graded score, you'll still get your sum of the multiple choice and the hand graded stuff. And then the other thing you want to do is change your scale, because every test tends to have different numbers of questions in each standard, so you want to make sure that that is accurately reflected. So we're going to homeroom scaling, and we're looking at our standard 1 and our standard 2. You can change this however you want. Let's say now standard 1 has 13 questions or 12 questions. You delete it, bring it up to the top, and then you can change your standard. You'd say this is a 10 and this is a 9 and oops, that's a 0. And you can change it however you want to reflect however many you have in both of these. The important thing is that then you need to go change your coding in your SVG template page, because what that coding is saying is come to this homeroom scaling page, look in column B, and look all the way down to a certain row number. So this ends at 15. So I would want to go back to SVG template and look in my scaling code for standard 1, the green column. It's a crazy code if you're not familiar with Excel. It's just basically saying look up AG, this score right here, look that number up in homeroom scaling page, and look from, ignoring all this exclamation point $ stuff, B1 to C15. Those are the ones we care about, B1 to C15. So I would go back and check, and be careful with this. You have to hit enter before you can walk away from that, otherwise you're going to add stuff to the coding. B1 right here to C15. That still works for us. We're good. We can leave that as is. Let's say you had gone with standard 2 and now standard 2 is longer. Let's pretend that standard 2 is now ending at 15. Oops. That did not work out for me. Anyway, hypothetically, standard 2 is now longer and ending at 15. You would go in to the standard 2 scaling. Notice how now it says that this is not applicable because there isn't a code for if you get 0 if you're only looking to 12. Because over here, F12, they only have scores for as low as 3 holds. So you have to go change that. And all it is really is finding F12, changing that 12 to 15, hitting enter. Now you see that a 0 is a 5, and carrying that code all the way down. Now all that's left for you to do is go to Aware, pull your student data, copy paste it right in here where it goes student ID number, student name, and their scores. Tweak your griddable answers if needed, if you have any, and then your scores should populate in the standard 1 and standard 2 raw. When you enter your hand graded scores, you'll get the sum, which will auto-populate their ultimate grades, and then you can follow the other video on how to take this whole thing and change it to something where you can mass upload them to your gradebook. I hope that was helpful.